The Honorable Speaker, Honorable Prime Minister and members of the Council of Ministers, Honorable Governors and Chief Ministers, Honorable Members of Parliament and friends. For one who had the great privilege of participating in the epic struggle for our freedom, this commemorative meeting of the Houses of Parliament is a heartwarming event. I therefore express to the Houses of Parliament of India my deep appreciation of its decision to convene this meeting. As Chairman of the National Committee for the celebration of the 40th anniversary of our independence, it is a particular pleasure for me to place on record the committee's appreciation of this imaginative gesture. Those who had responded to the call of Mahatma Gandhi and joined the liberation movement did so without any hope that the dream would be realized within their lifetime. This occasion, therefore, cannot but cause a thrill to those who participated in the freedom movement and have the good fortune to witness the 40th anniversary of independence. Presences bring absences to mind. So it is both natural and fitting that you should take this day to remember all those patriots who, whether they were foot soldiers or great generals of the Army of Freedom, who are no longer with us to share in our joy. Friends, we heard a few moments ago excerpts from Jawaharlal Nehru's speech, which has now become part of history. The history just not of this subcontinent, but of the freedom-loving peoples of the entire world. The stroke of the midnight hour, as Nehru described it, signaled the transfer of power from the British to Indian hands. That transfer was only the visible form of a much more fundamental transformation that took place simultaneously. As authority passed from His Britannic Majesty, the majesty of the masses of India came to be established. A changeover took place from servitude to freedom, from despondency to hope, from denial to opportunity. History worked a magic into the date August 15th. I recall the euphoria that swept over the land on August 15, 1947. On India's ancient face appeared after centuries a radiant smile reflecting the hope of a new and better life ahead. In their enthusiasm, the people of India dreamt that poverty will be replaced by plenty and that all human misery will be wiped out overnight. It took some time for our people to realize that freedom by itself does not bring about transformation, but that freedom was an instrument to bring about revolutionary changes in their life. It was given to the great visionary Jawaharlal Nehru to forge those instruments of change on the anvil of pragmatic idealism. Through a unique experiment in democratic planning, he sought to telescope centuries of advance in industry and science within a series of 5-year plans. The results are there for all of us to see. Droughts assail us periodically like the present one. But basically, we are self-reliant in food, self-sufficient in major basic industries, and are on the threshold of an entirely self-generating economy. Countries that became independent along with us after the Second World War have lagged far behind. We have achieved all this in our own unique way. Even as we achieved freedom without armed rebellion, we have achieved economic progress with the consent of the people. Our plans have been debated in Parliament and approved by the people's representatives. The measure of land reforms, for instance, even though it has been put through ever so tardily, has been free from the taint of violence or the suppression of a class. All this is a victory for the concept of a mixed economy, for the concept of a planned economic development, and for the democratic form of government. Having said this and noted with satisfaction the success of our plans and policy, You must admit a sense of something missing, a forgotten factor, a recalcitrant problem that seems to defy solution. Jawaharlal Nehru was once asked, "What is your principal problem?" And he replied, "We have got 360 million problems in India." Elucidating his answer, he said, "I suggest that the only policy that we should have in mind is that we have to work for the 360 million people, not for a few, not for a group, but for the whole lot, and to bring them up to an equal basis," unquote. That was in 1954. How one wishes one could say in 1987 that we have got only 360 million problems in India. We unfortunately have more than twice that many problems. Each year, each month, each day means so many more mouths to be fed, hands to be employed, minds to be educated, and bodies to be clothed, housed, and given health care. In hard terms, it means that we will have to meet the challenges of a population which has reached the 800 million mark and still threaten to increase. Programs will therefore have to be so devised as to afford palpable satisfaction to the millions. It is well known that such satisfaction can come only if the people concerned feel that they are participants all along the line from formulation through implementation to fruition. Now this is where the institution of parliament and parliamentary form of democracy have a unique role to play. The founding fathers of our constitution, consciously and with full knowledge of the implications, opted for a parliamentary democracy as the political system best suited to the needs and genius of our people. They realized that in the multi-level pluralist complexity of our society, only that polity can work which is founded on the principle of give and take. We shall be unworthy of our democratic inheritance and false to the trust reposed in us if we do not adhere to the spirit of democratic accommodation. While democracy makes for debate, it precludes confrontation. While it makes for self-expression, it renders agitation redundant. Accommodation and not acrimony, consensus and not confrontation mark a healthy democracy. It should be our endeavor to reach consensus on national issues and make it our normal working method. Democracy and the principle of one man, one vote imply that all are equal and that in the exercise of their democratic rights, everyone enjoys equal protection. Legal protection, however, is not enough. Democratic rights need social protection. They need protection against all forms of inequality based on birth, caste, creed, or other. Democracy works successfully in countries where there is a homogeneous population or where people acquire, even when they have different origins, the sense of oneness and belonging to the country. Our effort should be directed towards achieving this Indianness so vital for the functioning of democracy. During the struggle for freedom, we reached a very high level of national integration. Unfortunately, we have since independence fallen by the wayside and taken wayward steps towards casteism, parochialism, and separatism. It appears that the dormant tribalism in man has revived with a vengeance after independence. We are mistaking parochialism for patriotism and obscurantism for nationalism. The 40th anniversary of independence is an appropriate occasion for soul search and self-examination of the past professions, the present practices, and future trends. India has a glorious history of respect for all religions and tolerance towards all faiths. It is seldom realized that Islam came to India long before the invaders and Christianity long before the East India Company. They had all lived in peace and harmony for centuries, each contributing its best to the culture of India. As a result of the diabolical policy of divide and rule practiced by the colonial power, seeds of discord were thrown in the body politic, leading to the unfortunate partition of our country. It is necessary to recapture the old spirit of brotherhood among people following different religions in accordance with the true principle of every religion. It was Kabir who sang, Jat na puchiye, sadhu ki puch lijiye jnaan. It is the kind of knowledge of the person that is to be respected always, and not his caste or community. It behoves the leaders of all religions to restore harmony among the fellow beings and ensure peace and tranquility within our country so that our energies may be directed towards the uplift of the masses and thus redeem our pledges to them. Friends, our life in recent times has been vitiated by the phenomenon of terrorist violence. Acting blindly but with a diabolical sophistication, terrorism has hit out at simple men and women and children who offended none nor offered any provocation. The nation's conscience mourns the homes that have been shattered by what can only be called the massacre of the innocents. Let us on this historic day make it clear to all concerned that the people of India cannot be taken for granted by forces that seek to harm our society. Let nothing that undermines the faith of the principles, the culture of our society, and the basic institutions of our nation go unchallenged. May I appeal to fellow citizens through these elected representatives gathered here to renew their commitment to non-violence, the weapon which won us freedom. If violence and confrontation have been threatening us at every turn in India, dark clouds of mistrust overhang the arena of international relations also. It has been India's privilege to have recently been called upon to play a critical role in diffusing tensions and restoring confidence among embittered nations abroad. This role is entirely in keeping with our tradition and our genius. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Government of India on its far-sighted, brave, and altogether statesmanlike role in the international affairs. Friends, our task is only half finished. The task of redeeming the country from alien rule has been achieved, but the greater task of redeeming the people from poverty still remains ahead of us. The latter task calls for sustained effort by all sections of society and all political parties and institutions. There is an enormous area of cooperation for all of us in this gigantic task. I appeal to all the people of India to join together in the steps towards eradicating poverty from our country. May I conclude with the summons sent out by Kathopanishad, which Swami Vivekananda made famous. Uttishtata, Jagrada, Prapya Varan Nibodhata. Arise, awake, and not stop until the goal is reached.